back live from the AMS 2020 annual meeting, the 100th annual meeting of the AMS in Boston. And I'm here with Craig Allen and Todd Glickman, both of WCBS AM in New York City. And Todd, we go way back because you were also at one time an AMS guru and still are. How many meetings is this for you now?
This would be about plus or minus a bit my 40th annual meeting.
All right, and you're 42 years old, so that's pretty incredible.
Right.
Yeah. Good for you. It's more than I've got under my belt, but I'm hoping to get there because I really enjoy this experience. I get to meet people, and Craig, we haven't even met before.
No,
so
this is the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are you thinking? You said you've been to a bunch of annual meetings before, right?
Yeah, just under a dozen, I think. But starting out back when we did one in Waikiki in '85, I will never forget that one. I think that was my first. But the one thing that I noticed about this one, this is obviously very different because I go to the broadcast conventions where we have, Todd, 250, 300 at a time. There's over 5,500 people here from all walks of the AMS. So I found that a little bit overwhelming when I first got in here to see this. The exhibit floor just blew me away. I had to take a picture as soon as I walked in here to see all the exhibits down there. So this is pretty remarkable. It really, really is. Congratulations to the AMS for being able to pull this off as good as they have so far.
We're all kind of blown away. I think we're actually close to 6,000 right now, which is clearly a record.
Yeah,
and Todd, you probably remember the numbers from the 80s and stuff. It was
and I'll tell you the story. I worked on the staff of AMS from 1993 to 2000 as the assistant executive director, and I was part of the team that thought about what do we do for the 100th anniversary. And our then meetings director, Yael Schiffman, signed the contract for the convention center this week, back then 20 plus years ago. And I recall our then executive director, Dick Hallgren, getting really worried. He said, there is going to be the biggest blizzard of the epic, and the members won't be able to get there. They're going to want their money back. We're going to lose our shirts. They're going to be angry at us. And look what happened. We had 2 days, 70 degrees.
70 degrees. That's pretty remarkable because I was worried about that too. I'm from New York. Obviously, we do WCBS. And I was so worried that at some point I would have to either take my broadcast equipment up here with me and actually do it from the hotel room.
Yeah.
Because no one would know. But on the other hand, it just turned out so remarkable to be walking around the city on Sunday at 74. Although you do know it snowed yesterday morning.
I felt the snow because yesterday morning we had a hotel evacuation and we were standing out on the street at 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
With snowflakes tickling my nose.
Right.
And then the shivers in my pajamas, but that's another matter.
Okay.
I think it's remarkable that Dick Hallgren got that forecast wrong.
Former director of the National Weather Service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which tells me that we still have a credibility problem in this field if we can't predict weather 30 years in
for
advance.
our own people.
And who would have predicted 6,000 people? Recall the annual meeting then was maybe 1,500, maybe closing in on 2,000, something like that. Just no idea that would be this immense.
So with such a big meeting, how do you decide what to do? Because you still got a broadcast conference embedded in this, and there's still over 200 broadcasters here. What's compelled you, first of all, outside the broadcast track, so to speak?
Local weather. In other words, the ones that dealt with thunderstorms, the ones that deal with winter storms. I've walked into those a lot more frequently than some of the more, how do I put this? The more scientifics, the more physics-oriented ones, the ones that are geared more towards what I will need to use on the air. That's what I've done so far. And Todd, he's still running around trying to organize everything. So,
well, I'm very interested in aviation meteorology, so I try and catch some of those. I also have a student I'm supporting through a scholarship, and he's giving a talk today in the Research to Operations session. And I hope to get over to that as well. So just trying to dabble into a couple different things that look interesting.
Now, you also have another hat that you wear with MIT, right? Is that still a gig that you've got?
That's the full-time gig. I direct the corporate relations office at MIT, where we work with large corporations from around the world that invest in research at the university. So it's not just atmospheric science. It's anything from biotechnology to nanotechnology. So I'm exposed to a lot of science and engineering over there, but meteorology is still my love.
But he wears a third hat.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Oh yes, it's a train conductor's hat for trolleys, for the New York City subways, for every transit system here in the Northeast. He wears that hat too.
This is a great transit city.
I like to play with 1-to-1 scale model trains.
1-to-1 scale. Well, one of the things that's scaling so much here at the meeting is artificial intelligence stuff, which I'm sure in your role at MIT you see a lot of that growing in the corporate world too.
Absolutely.
In a way, do you find that what you're seeing at an AMS conference more and more mirrors the advanced technologies and let's say research directions that you're seeing in other fields?
I think we're ahead because look at the birth of numerical modeling really came out of our field. The ability to use high-powered computers, significant data sets, big data was invented by meteorology, and now other professions and other industries are trying to figure out what they do with big data. The Internet of Things is a big data problem, but we've had that problem for decades, trying to get all the sensor systems into the supercomputers and get the meshes smaller and be able to get output that people can use. So we've been dealing with those problems for decades that other industries are now just starting to face.
Well, Craig, that kind of brings up another point, which is that big data has been the field for so long, but you guys, being broadcast meteorologists, are the ones who have to figure out how to take that big picture, the big data,
you bet,
and turn it into some kind of story, right? I mean, that's the challenge.
Probably the most the thing that's changed the most since Todd and I started is that we used to take that data and it came out on maps that we then had to draw on. And we had to make our own conception. We had to come up with some kind of an idea of, after drawing and plotting in where the moisture is, what the winds are at this level, it's all done for us already. You know, it's like everything is color coded. It's already there. So I think that has made the profession easier, and yet on the other hand, it has made some a little too lax. That's my personal opinion. In other words, it's there. Oh, I see green coming along for 12Z tomorrow. I'm going to go with showers. That's a little too simplified. In the old days, so to speak, we used to have to see why there were showers coming towards us, not there are showers coming towards us because this is what the NGM, I almost said the NGM.
Well, you're going back decades.
Well, see, I'm talking about the old days, you know.
The LFM.
The LFM. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Clinic.
Yeah. But you get the idea of what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, the Babbage machine. You know,
right.
So, but that's, it's still a matter of putting together a lot of different sources of information, right? And which is another big data
That's
problem,
overwhelming.
right? For the researchers and for you as well.
Actually, we're going to speak on what should we use and tell me which model I should use. That's the topic of Todd's speech coming up.
My advisor at MIT said, back when we started using numerical models, this is guidance. This is what you have to help you solve your problem. This is not the gospel. And today we see a lot of broadcasters put the output of the model on TV, point to it and say, this is what's going to happen. And what Craig and I are going to talk about in our presentation in a very short while is that the viewers and listeners want to know what you think. They don't want to know what the numerical models think and that they're competing and fighting. They want to know, you as a professional, what is your opinion? How is the weather going to play out? How is it going to affect my life?
A lot of graphics I see out in the poster session are just more and more sophisticated about showing the range of options, the assimilating all this stuff into uncertainties and things. But in the end of the day, that to me looks more complicated, not more communicative in some ways. You know, it's more sophisticated.
Exactly. Well, that's the difference. I mean, that's why we are going to present this in the broadcast section, because we want to get it to the people that communicate it out. The people that we saw in the poster session, were just remarkable. I mean, to see the level of intelligence and to see them so young like that was
There's a correlation.
It was right. We're stuck in our old habits here, but I found that absolutely astounding to see what they were coming up with. But again, Todd and I are going to try to deal with the people that have to take that information that they're discovering on their own and then be able to present this to people who are then in the media, to present it to the people who do not fully understand what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the 7-day thing is one of the things that most people want to see. Some stations have tried to do 10 and they try to put up 15, but all you're getting on there is a flat icon now. You don't even have colorful icons anymore. Every station has gone to flat Stanley icons.
Interesting, yeah.
And you get a sun, a cloud, a raindrop, a lightning bolt, and a snowflake, on the same thing. How do you communicate that to people out there? But yet that's what they're looking for. So I think that's what we're going to try to work on here.
And how do you communicate the uncertainty that you understand? Because that's an important just as important piece of information as what you're forecasting the weather to do. There are some times when you're very confident, 5 or 7 days out. There's some times where the guidance is diverging or it's changing in time. But some people will lock in and say, look what it says is going to happen on Saturday. We're going to have a snowstorm. Even though model run to model run is not being consistent as diverging, you have to communicate. There's a lot of uncertainty. Stay tuned, because we will not know what's going to happen until we're a lot closer to the event.
How do you feel it is on radio versus on TV? I mean, you're talking about a lot of graphics-heavy communication these days, but you guys have the singular advantage of forcing people to focus on one sense at a time. Does that help or hurt?
Listening. Not just hearing, listening, and that again is what we're going to be talking about on there. Is Todd's been telling me this all through the morning hours. Concentrate on how to tell the people, tell the story. And I think that has helped me tremendously in the TV sector too, because when we are on TV, if, like Todd said, this is coming, and you got your finger pointing to the green, that's all they're seeing. They're not listening to what they hear me, but they're not listening. And I think radio gives you that ability. You're not supposed to give away any part of the speech, Todd.
So let's rehearse a little bit.
We get a preamble.
A good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning is an overview and what's important in the story. The middle is what you need to know in depth. And the end is the conclusion of what you need to remember. Now let's look at what a television broadcast is. The beginning is the current conditions. The middle is a model discussion. And the end is the extended forecast. Those two do not correlate. The TV presentation of conditions, model discussion, extended forecast is not telling the story in the traditional way of overview, what you need to know in depth, and here are the conclusions to remember.
It's like 3 different stories in one.
Exactly. So in radio, our problem is how do we tell the story while including the information people need to know.
All right, so beginning, middle, end. We're at the end of the podcast episode, so your 30-year extended forecast for the AMS annual meeting. How many people?
6,008.
I think someone said when I walked in here that there were about 5,500 to 6,000 registered, but that they thought that there could be as much as 10,000 people in total, including I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll 6,009, just like we're playing Jeopardy. I'm gonna
okay. All right, that's Final Jeopardy for Craig Allen and Todd Glickman. I don't know who won, but whatever it is, I feel like I won. Thanks, guys, for showing up and doing the interview.
Yeah, thank you very much.